from Tim Grant, and Tim was Coach Gaines' last assistant coach. He was a former player. He worked with Coach for 14 years as an assistant coach, and he's director of the Winston-Salem Recreation and Cars. Coach Gaines once said to me of Tim, that boy's GPA was higher than his points per game. Thank God for Tim, he kept the team's average up.
Good afternoon. As you've already heard, my GPA was much higher than my points per game, as well as minutes played also. For many years I was mistaken. People thought I was Coach Gaines' son. Clarence, we don't look alike. But usually when you saw Coach, you saw me. If you didn't see Coach, you still saw me. I came to Winston-Salem State like a lot of other young men. My high school government teacher was a guy named George Wiley who played football at Winston-Salem State University. And I thought I was hot stuff. We won the state championship. Mr. Wiley asked me one day, he said, Tim, where are you going to college? I said, I don't know. I had a few basketball, baseball, music scholarships. I said, you know, but I saw in Ebony magazine this guy named Big House and Earl Monroe. I want to go play for Big House. Next thing I knew, Coach Wiley had called down here and contacted Big House. I came down for a trip. Had a nice trip, and at that time, you could send your sons and daughters away with your school teachers, and parents didn't have to worry about it. And so my mom and dad did that. They sent me down here with Coach Wiley. Came down, had an unofficial, official, illegal workout in the old Whitaker gym, bought an unofficial transcript. Coach said, you got good grades, son. Let's see what you can do. I probably would play against any and everybody that was on campus that day. So when we finished, Coach said, you know what, I can use a guard like you. What do you think? I said, Coach, I don't know. I don't know. Let me think about it. So being a very sly coach, he said, well, I'll tell you what, let's go up to the dining hall, Kennedy Dining Hall, and sit down and eat, and we'll talk some more. So here we go off to Kennedy Dining Hall. And for those of you who have been in Winston-Salem for a long time, do you remember that the male-female ratio was at one time? It was 26 females to every male on campus. So when I walked in Kennedy Dining Hall, I said, this is the school for me. Went back down to Coach's office. I said, Coach, I'm ready to come here. Went back to Martinsville, and my parents were sitting there when Mr. Wiley and I went in. My mom said, Tim, what do you think? I said, Mom, Winston-Salem State has great academic programs, and I think that's the school for me. But seriously, let me do a couple of things because I don't want to take a whole lot of time. Lisa told me I had 3 minutes, then it went to 5 minutes, and you're so much like your father. But I want to take a few minutes just to do a couple of things. Everyone in this building who played for Big House games, please stand. If you played basketball for Big House games, please stand. Thank you. You may be seated. Now, I'm not going to ask how many of you guys that stood up got sent to the library. You know what that meant if Coach sent you to the library. But I was very fortunate to have known Coach Gaines for 29 years. He was my coach. I worked along with him for many years. And then after his retirement, we remained friends. We would talk 2-3 times a week. When I left and took another job in another city, and went away, Coach would still call me. I would still call him. He would still call me and give me stuff to do. I said, Coach, I don't work for you anymore. He said, oh boy, don't worry about that, just get it done. But all those young men who just stood, Mrs. Gaines, Lisa, and Clarence, we have to thank you because you all made us a part of your family. And we will never forget that. We love you and we thank you for taking us in. Because we were a part of the family. We got to go over to Coach's house. Sometimes things were missing when we left. But Coach would always take us over there. When you came to Winston-Salem State, see, I never pledged. People ask me today, did you pledge when you were in college? I said, no, I played basketball. Because when I came to school here, if you played basketball at Winston-Salem State University, you were already a member of a fraternity. You just didn't know it. Basketball was my fraternity. Coach was my coach. Playing for Coach was a life experience. Too many times I've heard people since Monday talk about basketball. With Coach Gaines, basketball was not the only thing important. What gave Coach joy and what he smiled most about was seeing young men and young women become productive and good citizens. He would always say, be a good citizen. We would always get lectures. Every day, lectures. When we would go on trips, Coach made it a point if we went to Washington, D.C. or Richmond or Atlanta to make sure he put some time in there to take teams around and show people what history was. What was history about? He would also take time to get former players to come back, role models, and take the time to introduce us to famous people. You know, Coach was famous, but he was someone you could talk to. He was someone who would talk to you. I remember a lot of advice Coach used to give. And some of you guys that stood are going to remember some of these. First thing he told many of us, and I heard this over and over again, he said, no one is important enough for you to steal for, lie for, or cheat for. He would say, guys, the world doesn't owe you one blank thing. Whatever you want, you get off your butt and you work for it. He would also say, act like you got some sense. As he would call it, a reasonable, prudent person. If you want to get in trouble with Coach, go to the dining hall or go over to the dorm and act a fool. He didn't tolerate that. He wanted all of us to be respectful. And because we played basketball, he would say, so what? Nobody cares. People remember you for what you are, not for winning ball games. Coach also did one other thing. He would always ask you a question. And you know what? He'd already know the answer. He just wanted to see if you would lie or not. And I used to tell you guys all the time, if he asks you a question, he already knows the answer. Coach had a great theory in life, what he used to call the bumper car theory. Life sends you in one direction, you get bumped a different way. Be prepared to be able to go in that direction. That's something I'll thank him for. I use the bumper car theory. I'm going to sit down, but I want to leave you with one story. We shouldn't be sad today. We should celebrate Coach, because I'm very thankful to God that our paths crossed. I would hate what my life would be like if I hadn't attended Winston-Salem State. Lisa, I told you I was going to keep it together, so I am. And Vicky, I'm going to keep it together. But I got to tell this one story. I was in school. We were playing over at Elon. We were scrimmaging over at Elon College over in Burlington. Went over to scrimmage, and I think it was probably 30 of us on the team, maybe 12 of us traveled. We went over to scrimmage. On the way back, there was a K&W type cafeteria over in the mall area there. And back during that time, I think I saw Bumpy here earlier, Fernandez Griffin. All you guys that play ball knew Bumpy. Some kind of way after the scrimmage, we were going to stop and eat at K&W. And something had happened to Coach. He didn't cash the check or something. And so he told Bumpy, take the guys over and get them through the K&W line, get one ticket, and I'll pay for it when I get there. And so off we went. Bumpy took us over. I believe I was a sophomore that year. We went over, went to K&W. Guys went through the line. If you ever played for Coach Gaines, Coach had one rule. If you play well, you eat well. If you play bad, you might not eat. So we had scrimmaged, and I think back during that time, this was 1977, 78. And back during that time, I think we may have been getting $3.50 for a meal or something, maybe $4. So Coach wasn't with us, and so Bumpy had told the guys, hey, everybody go through the line, you know what you're gonna get, and we'll just give you the ticket at the end. So here we go. We go through the line, and you know, $4 at K&W in 1977, 78 was a pretty good meal. We had guys going through the line getting 3, 4 meats, 5, 6 desserts. We had bills that were coming in for one person, $16, $17. And so when the bill came back, and Bumpy was at the end of the line, the bill was for like 13 people, was like $475. So what happened? Of course, Coach came. Now, people talked about they called Coach some, Chief, Big House, everything else. Well, we called him some names too. And he called us some, but we won't go into that. But Coach came through the line, and he saw that bill. When Bumpy handed him that bill, he said, "Ha!" And he walked around every table at K&W and sat there and said, "Mr. So-and-so, how you gonna eat 3 meats?" And he just went around. So we really ticked Coach off. So after we finished eating, he got everybody to come back outside the mall. They had a nice little grassy area. And he made everybody sit down in the grass. And when Coach was much younger, he would sit down like a big chief and cross his legs. Many of you guys that knew him when he was younger, he could do that. So here we are sitting outside in front of the mall. And Coach is sitting there like the big chief, and everybody's in front of him. And so, I guess 30 minutes had passed, we're sitting out in the sun. So 2 ladies walk out of the mall, and they say, look, there's Coach Gaines. He's over there counseling his team. And they walked on. We were being held hostage. Coach had told us until we paid the balance of that bill back, we weren't leaving the mall. To everybody here who Coach has touched, do what you just finished doing for the rest of your life in his memory, and that's laugh. Don't lose that, because that is what Coach really loved to do. He loved to laugh. God bless you.